Hi guys, so this has been an interesting reading week. I have actually read a lot, but nothing I'm really counting because I've done a lot of listening to audio. I've listened to 3 or 4 of the Islands books, both Independence and Swameli. I think I'm on the 4th. I'm re-listening to Dual Power of Convenience. It's been a week where I've really needed to look into some of my other stuff, so I was like, I'm just going to listen to these while I'm doing it. And I've had to do a lot of admin stuff, if you will, so I could at least be listening to something that I know well, because, I mean, I wrote it. Although, every time I read something I've written or listen to it, I find things that I'm like, I wrote that? I remember writing that. Wow, I like that. You know, it's this nice moment where you go, hey, you know, it wasn't just something I did once upon a time. This is something that actually resonates with me still. And that's a good feeling. Because, you know, I always wondered if maybe once you've finished with a book, you would get to the point where you didn't care about that book anymore because you're on to the next. And it's not really how it is. I mean, do I hear phrases that I'm like, why did I say that? I just used that word, the previous sentence. Why didn't I use a different word? I'm usually really good about that, but sometimes it gets missed, right? And so, I mean, I have those moments, sure. But I'm like, I like this character. You're cracking me up. You're fun, you know? And, I mean, that's just, it's such a neat feeling. So I've been doing that. I've been going through Adoring April and pulling out things. And I realized that, you know, I've been planning on doing Chloe next. Because Chloe was supposed to be book 3 and Adoring April was supposed to be like an adjacent novella, if you will. But Adoring April is getting basically, it's about 30,000 words right now. It's going to be about 80 when I'm done with it. Because I'm like, no, I want the full story. I don't want just, you know, a marriage of convenience romance done. That's just like, no. The whole point of this Marriages of Conviction series is that we get to see the marriages playing out, not not playing out, but you know what I mean. But it's not supposed to just to be about guy meets girl and they get together. That's the end. That's supposed to be like the kickoff. This is the full story. And I know April has a really neat story that I really like, and I want more of it. And so I'm like, yeah. Although I'm so frustrated. I would really like the title about this to be, instead of Charming Chloe on the what's going to now be the 4th, I'm going to change that adjacent to just book 3. What I would really like, instead of Charming Chloe, to be Something Boone, because I think it really fits better with what's going on. But instead, we already have Bentley, and I don't really want to repeat letters. I know it's silly, but I really don't, so it's staying. But I've gone through that and pointed out where in the story we have, I you know, there were so many things I didn't get to do because I had a word limitation. And now I don't have one. So I'm like, oh, we need to flesh out these weeks, because there's 6 weeks that of life that takes place. Actually, it's the 6 weeks of life take place in about 25,000 words, and then you have some after. So I'm like, this isn't enough. This is not enough. So we're going to get about, that's going to not quite double, but it's kind of almost double. And that's super cool. So I'm doing all that kind of thing. I was supposed to edit and like reread through the Booked for Love, the Matchmaking Book Clubs collection I'm in. I was supposed to read that this week. Well, I didn't get it. And I mean, I kind of remembered when I saw the post that it was supposed to be coming, but I just spaced it because I never saw it, and I cannot find it even in my spam. So I don't know where it went. The cyber goat got hungry, right? So those are all that I've read this week, except for I've read about 5 to 10 chapters in a few books. So Island of Stars, I'm 10 or 15 chapters in, loving it, super fun. The Second Chance Trailer Park, I'm 5 or 10 chapters in. I don't remember which. Loving it. And I started The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. So it's giving me vibes of Garden at the Edge of Beyond by Michael Phillips, which means that it probably inspired Phillips, right? Because Phillips, C.S. Lewis, is he one of the ones that shows up in that book? I think he might be. I know George MacDonald's definitely showed up. I'm pretty sure C.S. Lewis was one of the ones. And I know Matthew, the apostle, he showed up in that story. But clearly it would have been Lewis influencing him instead of the other way around. But, anyway. So I'm in that. And I'm also 15 or so chapters into The Color of Hope. And loving this far more than I expected to. It's not that I didn't think I would love it, because I did, but it's really resonating with me. And, it's really interesting. So all of this to say, when I was reading this, I started thinking about the other books. This book has an element of dementia in it. And yes, the fan is on. Sorry, guys. But this has the element of dementia in it. And I started thinking about other books that I've read that do also have that, I'm going to put that up there, element of dementia. And it really kind of got me thinking about those books. Because here's the deal. Dementia does not run in my mom's family at all. But my mom does live with us. Could it happen? Absolutely. So there's that. My dad had alcohol-induced dementia, and he also probably had a little bit of orneriness-induced dementia. My uncle, his older brother, used to have selective hearing. Basically, he was hard of hearing except when he didn't want to be, and then he was just fine. And I watched him do that same thing. He would, if he didn't want to engage, he would just pretend. And I saw that it was a pretense. It happened enough, and very specifically enough. Okay, I baited him. Just talking with my aunt and some others, and I would just talk, and I would say things that I knew would bring him into it. Absolutely, every single time he engaged. And then when he got bored with the conversation, he would just be off in his own little world. He just didn't want to. He didn't want to be a part of it, and that was okay. Did he ever have actual dementia? Maybe. I don't know. But at that time, 10, 11 years ago, if he had it, he could turn it on and off as well. So I don't, other than that, there's just no evidence of it in my side of the family. Both of my husband's parents had some sort of dementia, and my daughter has had genetic testing to see if it's a problem, and she has a double whammy on it somehow, some gene. And so there's a bit, she most likely got it from him, because we have no evidence of it over on our side. So we've always kind of assumed that someday this would be a thing, although his doctor says that really for him it might be more the traumatic brain injury, but the fact that the kind of job he's had will likely prevent him from having it, if anything can. So who knows, right? But I've kept up with dementia stories because I knew, and I save them when I run across a book that has a good dementia story in it. I save it because I want to make sure that should this happen, I have encouraging things to see, maybe see things through a different lens, to be able to deal with things, all that, right? So when I was reading The Color of Home, I was like, okay, that's going to have to go on that shelf. So that's when I was like, what other books have I read that I liked that dealt with dementia? And the very first thing that came to mind, and again, I couldn't go get it because but it is Saving Grayson by Chris Fabry. And if you want a heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time book, that's definitely one of them. That book. So in this one, Grayson, there's family trauma in the past. And Grayson he's severely impacted enough with dementia that he writes everything down all the time so that he will be able to look through and try to figure things out. And he he is convinced he has to go back. So he wants to just get in the car and go, and his wife isn't letting him. And finally his wife gets someone to take him, and he doesn't like this person. I can't say a lot about that, about the driver, because there would be a big spoiler if I did. But there's this constant trouble. He's awful to this guy at one minute, and he's wonderful to him the next. He's one of those very up and down dementia patients, and that's just like, ugh, it's so sad, but it just, this whole story about him getting to where he's going and trying to deal with the problems that he's trying to deal with, all the things, right? And it was so good. It was probably, I've read a few books by Chris Fabry. I really loved his Junebug, and in some ways Junebug is a better book. I won't pretend it's not. But Saving Grayson is probably my favorite book by Chris Fabry. Absolutely. Then there was Welcome to the Honeybee and Bee by Melody Carlson. And that book, a lot of times Melody has really just kind of fun, lighthearted things. And, a little goofy. And they're just delightful stories. This one had those elements in it. Absolutely. It was very Melody Carlson. But it also had a deeper richness, because we are dealing with this woman and her daughter return home to help her mother with her father, who has, he's pretty advanced dementia. He's really combatant. In a lot of ways, he's worse than Grayson. Grayson's very up and down. This guy, I cannot remember his name, but this guy, he's just turned against one person and throws all the ugliness he can at this one neighbor. He is just horrible to this neighbor. And he's ready to get the shotgun to this neighbor. He's just like not all there, right? And it's just all about how she's trying to help her parents and keep things going and keep everything okay, without like taking away their independence, if you will, and just dealing with all the stuff there. There was a side thing in there with another character that I felt wasn't handled really well. Okay, I'm just gonna be honest. It's not that it's a side thing, and so it doesn't impact the really great story. But that one side really did kind of bother me, because you have this character who has every appearance of being just a total sleaze, and then what she does and doesn't do with it just fell flat for me. And it could have been just a whole lot better, and it just wasn't. But you know what? Somebody else may have just loved the fact that she didn't do where my brain would have assumed things should go. All the air quotes, right? So there was that one. Loved the Honey, Airbnb, and Saving Grayson. Then, I keep talking about it, but the more I think about The Unforgettable Mailman, the more I love it. And the more, this guy reminds me much more of my father-in-law. My father-in-law was one of those men who, at the very beginning of his Alzheimer's, he was irritable and snappish. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't him, But he just developed into just the really nicest, sweetest guy, which he had always been before. And all that other, once it got rooted in enough that he wasn't fighting and confused and what's going on in my life and it making him agitated anymore, he's just kind of living his life, and life is grand, right? He was just like the happiest guy. He watched the Cub games every day. They had recorded a Cub game where the Cubs won. It happened once. But they had recorded it on, a VCR tape. And so he watched that game every day for the last couple of years of his life. Basically, he had like the best days of his life because his Cubs won, and he didn't remember that they won the day before because it didn't matter. But you know, he watched the Cubs, they won, he cheered, he had ice cream. Sometimes he managed to sneak another ice cream because the other gals there liked him because he wasn't mean to them. And it was just awesome. My mother-in-law was the sweetest woman on the planet. She was just such a dear. And from what I understand, she was that way all the way to the end, except if my brother-in-law went to see her. And then she was really awful to the nurses once he'd gone. So he had to not go very much. He lived in the same town with her. He wanted to be there for her all the time, and he couldn't because it made life hard for the people who had to care for her. And that was just, you know, oh, it just breaks your heart. This guy reminds me a lot of my father-in-law in the fact that, for the most part, he's just a really great guy. He's confused and he's frustrated that he doesn't understand or remember some things, but for the most part, he's just determined. You know, he's not kind of in his own little world. He has a mission, and he is on that mission, and that's to deliver the mail that isn't being delivered because the Chicago post office in the 60s at one point, was it 63 or 8, somewhere in there, they were so backed up they quit delivering the mail. And he finds out about it, he steals some, and he goes on a mission to deliver it. And then it's just this whole story of the people he impacts and who impacts him and all the things that go with it. And it's just delightful. But this one, I know I will be reading a lot because of it. It was just so good. And one thing I didn't mention, I don't think, when I talked about Nightfall in the Garden of Deep Time, is that this book also deals with dementia. So Kelsey runs the bookstore that belonged to her grandmother, and her grandmother is in a memory care unit, and she's really struggling because she has to pay to keep grandma there. She doesn't have the money for it. The store is struggling. She has to pay back taxes, and the store is struggling. She can't pay the back taxes. She just can't keep all the balls, you know, paying for this other stuff and this. There are all kinds of pressures to sell the store or to sell books in the store that she wasn't supposed to sell. All the things to keep all those balls rolling. And this shows kind of the ins and outs where grandma is usually there. This is a rare one because this one, it's a woman. And I have found that most of the dementia stories that I find are men. And I think that's interesting. I'm sure men probably it's more common with because reasons, I don't know. But I just find that really interesting. Anyway, in this one, we get to see grandma, who is there most of the time, but when she's not, she's not. And, how it affects and everything. It was really good. It's obviously a small subplot, but it's an impactful one for what it's worth. And if you don't want spoilers on one of my books, and because it is a bit of an actual spoiler for one of my books, you don't know right away what's going on until it gets revealed what it is. And if that is something that matters to you, you might want to skip for the next 5 minutes or so. But I do have a book that has a character with dementia in it. I love her so much. So you get 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, my second Christmas novel that I wrote, Advent, has a character whose mother has dementia, and so they're living in some pretty awful places. If you've read Argosy Junction, they live in the same building as Matt and Lane. It's all he can afford because he makes a great salary, but he has to pay a lot in daycare, basically someone to come watch his mother for him. Because she had actually sold her home and gone into a facility, and when the money ran out, they moved her into an unacceptable facility, and so he brought her home, and he pays out of his own salary a lot of money every month for someone to watch his mother and keep her safe. And it's why he makes more money than pretty much anyone in the office, and yet he's got worn out clothes and shoes, and he's got to try to keep everything looking decent because he's this ad executive. But he looks like a pauper because he's just barely surviving. But his mother has dementia, and she is just the most delightful woman. I had so much fun writing her, and I wrote her with my father-in-law in mind. I wanted her to be the sweet and kind and loving, and this was before my mother-in-law had even begun to get that little slight offness, and I would say she's a little like my mother-in-law. So I wonder if like my subconscious was going, well, I don't want to do a guy, so let's do if mom had dads. You know what I mean? I wonder if I did that. But yeah, Mom Havoc was sweet, and so is Flora in here. I love her, and I actually really love this story. So I even have a dementia story. But I found that there's a lot of fiction out there with dementia stories in the general market. I found a few, but I didn't find a lot of, great numbers of them in the Christian fiction market. And I thought that was interesting, and I don't know what am I missing? I know there have to be some. I went looking and I was having trouble finding some. I did find a few, but I would have expected more, and I'm not finding it. So the ones that I found, not all of these are Christian fiction, but some of them are. And I don't know anything about these. So basically what I'm hoping is that you will tell me, yes, you should read that. No, you should not, whatever. The first one I found wasn't Christian fiction. I found that Frederick Bachman has one. He's the author who wrote A Man Called Uva. And I really did love that book. I love a good curmudgeon. And it was a delightful book. This one is, and every morning the way home gets longer and longer. I'm telling you, I wonder if this title is way shorter in Swedish. From the New York Times bestselling author of A Man Called Uva, Anxious People, and My Friends. Never heard of My Friends. A profoundly moving novella. It's a novella. It is available on audio for $5.24, just saying. About an elderly man's struggle to hold on to happy memories, face his regrets, and help his son and grandson learn to say goodbye to him. I was like, that's an interesting perspective, coming from the person with the disease who is dealing with his own mental things while he knows he's losing them, and also wants to help the family before he can't anymore. That I really loved. So I am going to definitely be reading that one. I'll probably listen to it if the narrator is decent. I don't know. But anyway, that was the first one. Then I found this one, and this one is fascinating. So again, please do tell me if, I'm going to lift this up here. Do tell me if you've heard of this. So it is On Walden Street by Denton Hartman. It says, the description isn't all that engaging, but it is helpful. It says, America is aging. The most recent census reveals that 1 in 6 people in the U.S. is over the age of 65. Long life can have many blessings, but it can also prevent many risks. A concern at any age, and one such risk is the loss of mental abilities. Dementia is real, and the challenges it presents are many. It is predicted that dementia in America is on a trajectory to increase exponentially in the coming decades. On Walden Street is the story about ordinary people who are living in the wake of dementia. Some have been afflicted with a dementing disease, and some are trying to provide care. All are dealing with an uninvited twist into their own life story. But in the midst of the struggle, they find hope. On Walden Street is a story about our shared need for grace, forgiveness, and redemption as we face the messy circumstances of life. The characters on Walden Street learn the value of community and comfort found in sharing suffering, and incomparable value of applying a spiritual perspective to all of life's trials. But anyway, it sounds fascinating that it's dealing with a community of people doing this. And I don't know. I mean, let's face it, that description sounds very nonfiction-y rather than story. I'm looking for stories. So I will read the preview. Is it an audiobook? No. I will read the preview and see if I like the writing style. I did not do that before this because I'm hoping that someone has read it and said, yes, read this, or no, that's you're not going to enjoy that. I don't care. I would just like an opinion if you've seen it. And then there was Blue Hydrangeas. This one, oh my goodness. This has an audiobook too. I'll have to listen to the audio preview and see if I'm interested. But Blue Hydrangeas by Marianne. What if the person who knew you best and loved you most forgot your face and couldn't remember your name? Memory care is everyone's solution for what to do about Sarah. But her husband Jack can't bear to live without her. He's committed to saving his marriage, his wife, and their life together from the devastation of Alzheimer's. See, it's a woman. I'm loving the idea that it's a woman just for variety, right? They retired years ago to the house of their dreams and operated it as a Cape Cod bed and breakfast named Blue Hydrangeas. Jack has made an impossible promise. They will stay together in their beautiful home no matter what the disease brings. However, after 9 years of selfless caregiving complicated by her progressing Alzheimer's and his own failing heart, Jack finally admits he can no longer care for his wife at home. With reluctance, he arranges to admit her to an assisted living facility, but on the morning of admission, Sarah is having one of her few good days, and he's unable to follow through. Instead, he takes them on an impulsive journey to confront their past and reclaim their future. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. So have you read Blue Hydrangeas? I need to know, right? And then Katie Powner. I found one by Katie Powner. And it makes sense to me that Katie Powner would have one, right? A Flicker of Light. Secrets are like pennies. Everyone's got one, even the poorest among us. For generations, the Jensens have raised families in the small Montana town of Moose Creek, where gossip spreads faster than the wind, yet some secrets need to be told. When 21-year-old Bee discovers she's pregnant on the heels of her husband losing his job, she's forced to admit she needs help and asks her dad for a place to stay. But past resentments keep her from telling him all that's going on. Mitch Jensen is thrilled to have a full house again, though he's unimpressed with Bee's decisions. Dropping out of college, marrying so young, and to an idealistic city kid of all things. Mitch hopes to convince Bee to return to the path he's always envisioned for her. But she's changed since her mom died. And he refuses to admit how much he's changed too. Especially now that he might be losing his mother as well. Grandma June is good at spinning stories, but there's one she's never told. Now that her mind is beginning to fade, her time to tell it is running out. But if she reveals the truth before her memories are gone forever, the Jensen family will never be the same. I mean, come on! It sounds so good. So have you read any of them? I ordered A Flicker of Light last night. The paperback right now is $9 on Amazon. And I was like, I ordered. Done. Move it along. Was it $8.99? Yeah. It's $9. I had to, right? Because Katie and Powner. But so there were those. But then I was like, what about middle grade? Are there middle grade books that deal with dementia? I don't know. So I go looking, and I just found one article. Look, I know there's got to be more, because this article is from 2021 and only has books from right around there. So, but there were a couple, well, actually there were a bunch, but there were a couple that particularly stood out to me. And I want to know, have you read any of these? This one's really cool. It's by The Memory Keeper by Jennifer Canachia, I think. All Lulu Carter wants is to be seen, but her parents are lost in their own worlds, and Lulu has learned the hard way that having something as rare as HSAM, the ability to remember almost every single moment in her life, won't make you popular at school. At least Lulu has Graham, who knows the truth about Lulu's memory and loves her all the more for it. But Graham has started becoming absent-minded, and the more lost she gets, the more she depends on Lulu, until Lulu realizes her memory holds the very key to fixing Graham's forgetfulness. Once Lulu learns that trauma can cause amnesia, all she needs to do to cure Grandma is hunt down that painful moment in Graham's life. So, with her friends Olivia and Max, Lulu digs into Graham's mysterious past, but they soon realize that some secrets should stay buried, and Lulu wonders if she ever knew Graham at all. It's up to Lulu to uncover the truth before the only person who truly sees her slips away. I was like, oh, that sounds good, but I'm trying to figure out if she really thinks this is, does she think that this is traumatic and, this is caused by trauma, and this really isn't about dementia? What's going on here? I don't know. So this one, this other one, The Space Between Lost and Found, has a young girl whose mom, she's a young girl, but her mom is losing it. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't want that one. Sticky Notes. Foster Summer is 10 years old. He likes toy soldiers, tadpole hunting, going to school, and the beach. But best of all, he likes listening to his dad's stories. But then Foster's dad starts forgetting things. No one is too worried at first. Foster and Dad giggle about it. Dad goes out for milk and comes back with cat food when the cat has been dead for 5 years. But then the forgetting gets worse, and suddenly no one's laughing anymore. I was like, oh. So those are the middle grade ones I found. There's got to be more. But one of the things that I started thinking about, I don't recall reading books that were written 100 years ago or more that have this dementia element as part of the story. Like, are there any characters in any of Ellen Montgomery's books that have dementia? I can't recall any. I mean, you read stories about someone who is concerned about getting silly in their old age or whatever, growing childish, but you don't actually have them as strong characters. I couldn't think of any, and I because even like, what is that woman's name with all the birds in, was it Bleak House? I think my mind is mixing up Dickens, but I think there's a woman, she has lots of little birds, but I mean, she's a little flighty or whatever and not quite all there, but she's not, it's not dementia. I just can't think of these older books. And is it because it was so rare that it wouldn't be interesting? Or was it because it was so common it wouldn't be interesting? Was it because it wasn't acceptable to write something that might be construed as mocking? I mean, why am I not remembering? And am I going to be laughing hysterically when one of you guys says, well, what about this book? It's there. And you'll be like, oh, yeah, I mean, I could see that happening, but I just couldn't think of any. And I'm curious. It's like, why isn't this, I can't remember anyone in the Trollops. Even in Elizabeth Googe, I don't remember. Or Stevenson? I mean, I don't remember. And I'm curious. It's like, why? Why is this a thing? So anyway, yeah, I just kind of wanted to go down a dementia rabbit hole. I mean, why not, But I do want to know more. So if there are books, if you've read any of the ones that I mentioned, I would love to know if I'm going to like them, if you think I will, or if you know of some that I haven't mentioned, or whatever. Absolutely. This week I do hope to get back to reading these, but I do have to edit my, I called mine Turnabout a Spare Match, and I'm going to try to read the rest of the stories in the collection as well. Guys, pretty soon, I think she's going to be closing the launch team for that book. I will put a link in the description if you are interested in getting a copy of the book in advance and reading it, hopefully leaving a review and sharing about it wherever you share your stuff. But if that interests you, fill out that form for sure. And what else is going on? I'm sending out my newsletter today. If you don't get my newsletter, Shatona.com, you'll get a pop-up box and it'll send you that, and you'll also get a link for Pugs and Kisses, which is a hilarious little story that I really loved. And now I want to read it again. I'm just having a I need to reread my stuff moment, I guess. I don't know. That's going on, and I don't know if there's anything else going on other than melting. Yeah, we're melting, and I've got hairs. It's driving me crazy. So I'm gonna go take care of the hairness, and hopefully I'll see you on Friday, with something. I don't know what it'll be, but it should be something. And I hope you have a great week. Absolutely great week. Come on, let's have a nice, cool, refreshing week. I could go for that. Except for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere where you probably would rather have a warm week. And you know what? We'll just trade this week. It would be fun, right? It was 125 yesterday in Death Valley. I'm only an hour away, okay? I'm just saying. It was hot. All right, I'm going to go and try to get this taken care of. I will see you Friday.